What is happening out there, rotoscouts basketball fans? Welcome to the show, gang. Midweek, another hump day. Feel like I'm saying that every couple of hours. Weeks just go by again and again. We're almost back to football again for this week. It's amazing how quickly these weeks go by. Hopefully, get the opportunity a little later on to wish my fellow Yankees fans a happy Juan Soto day, but not counting our chickens just yet. Seems like we're on the cusp. Juan Soto, Trent Grisham, hopefully coming to the Bronx in exchange for a couple pitching prospects that I would drive to the airport myself if it made a difference. Deal I've been calling for since the start of last baseball season at least. I kind of want to go back through all of last year's shows and find out the first time I officially called for Soto to come to the Yankees. But it's been a while. It is the right move. Since they're dealing so much pitching, got to think that Brian Cashman has something up his sleeve for some pitching. Might be the Japanese kid. A couple pieces around the league. We were just talking about Dylan Cease potentially for the Orioles. Think he would be an interesting piece for the Yanks as well. Orioles just picked up Craig Kimbrell. Let's just do a baseball show. Screw the basketball slate. Let's just do the baseball show. Could be Trav. You better check the news, buddy. Ohtani might be going to the Jays. Soto, the deal's basically done. It's down to just medicals and stuff. So, you've been up in the crane too long, Trav. But yeah, the Ohtani is very much involved with the Jays. Allegedly met with them the other day. Trav just catching up. Yeah, deal's basically done for King and Thorpe as the two primary prospects. Two excellent pitching prospects. I'd like to keep them if I could and have Juan Soto, but it's a deal you make 100 times out of 100. And knock on wood, none of it's official yet. There you go, Matthew Patterson. Yeah, Matthew knows my favorite players. He's on that list now. He has always been one of my favorite hitters in the league, and now I can hopefully officially can have him as one of my actual favorite players. But yeah, I've been talking about him forever. He's legitimately, I put his numbers in the Discord yesterday, legitimately one of the best hitters in all of baseball. And if things continue on a maybe not Hall of Fame track, but thereabouts, his comps are very, very good. Anyway, let's get into this basketball slate. We do have 11 games on deck tonight. Enough of these two-gamers, enough of this nonsense. And Knicks got smoked last night. That wasn't fun. Second game was good. Needed a little OT from that second game. Finished in, I think, the teens somewhere. It was funny. It was me, and then it was same lineup. It was me, Tom from over at Stochastic, Eddie from over at Stochastic, two other Stochastic logos, and then J187, our guy, but also Stochastic guy, was up above that or thereabouts. I forget where it finished. We had XX Cubs fan with the Rotoscouts logo. Had a few chasers. His fell off a couple as some of those other ones marched up. It's a big issue at the top yesterday, too, in that on FanDuel in that two-game slate. What's his face? One of the pros had a 150 lineup train. I don't know if he forgot it or if he just thought, hey, that would be a good way to enter for a two-lineup slate, which maybe could. It obviously worked. It paid off. He cashed it. You got to cash it. But if you just play a cash lineup in that two-game slate, it's maybe not the worst idea in the world. But for a while, it was sitting top 15, which took up the top 15 through 165. So that was problematic for a while, and a lot of people dropped below that. But a fun, weird little slate. But now we've got a lot to talk about on this one. I'm just going to fire up the board real quick. Aloysius is here. I'm a loser till I win. The Millie's here. What's up? What's going on, bud? Cujo Blue was here all the way at the top. I don't know if I meant to start the show by saying hi to Cujo, because Cujo is the first person here many, many days just saying hi to everybody. So what's up, Cujo? Good to see you, buddy. I appreciate you. Didn't mean to skip you there. Just got into talking baseball all of us, right out of the gate, and I got enthusiastic about it. But yeah, interesting board. Odd duck name at the very, very top. We're already sorted here. This is the full board sorted by the DraftKings win rates. But $3,200 Duop Wreath showing a little bit of value on DK. Most highly owned DK player. I think he was in like the 70s or the high 60s in the last time I saw. So I think we're obviously going to be talking about him over there. It's lower than I thought. It was a little bit below 60%, but still very, very highly owned. Comes up as a strong play, giving him 24 minutes in the absence of DeAndre Ayton. He's out tonight. So $3,200. It's a price play, but he's also got a decent minutes projection in his limited action this season. 11 minutes, 13.9 minutes a game, 0.92 DraftKings points per minute. It's enough to support that. We're at or about that level tonight. And everybody's, pushing him through the same way on the DraftKings side. On FanDuel, a little bit less interesting. The single center probably has a little bit to do with that. Still coming up as a 17% winner. So you're going to have him, you're going to want him. But at 4,000 center only over there, a little bit less interesting. Just a critical piece of just buy the square value on DraftKings for $3,200. Travis and Travis are talking to one another now about the Soto of the Blue Jays. That confused me for a second. I was like, wait, Travis was the one that said that original, and then I realized it was two different Travises. What's going on, Trav Wyndham? Good to see you, bud. Hey, Joker. Good to see you too, Joker. Go lie down. We got a long way to go. So a lot of differences site to site too. And in addition to Reith, we've got Bogdan looking pretty good across both sites. 31% winner on DraftKings, 36% winner on FanDuel. 5,800, both shooting guard and small forward spots on both sites. Bojan Bogdanovic showing a good amount of value on DraftKings. 17% winner here, and I'm actually going to give him a little bit of a nudge. I was a little bit lighter than I wanted to be on the points per minute when I looked at it just before the show. So we expect him to go up by like about, call it 1.5, 2 points overall. He'll be in like the 25-ish, 25 and a half point range. So he'll pick up a little bit of value on FanDuel, but it would probably still be single digits. Probably still, maybe it becomes like this. Probably less because he's still more expensive than that. So he'll still be low single digits on FanDuel, but he'll pick up even more value on the DraftKings slate. So I do think that Bojan should be part of the plans on DraftKings. So you're going to be seeing both Bogdanoviches in the lineups. Anthony Simons showing a little bit of value. 30.29% winner, assuming that he plays. He is questionable tonight. Just giving him 26 out of the gate. But he's at 5,500 both guard spots. And if he plays more than that, we know he's got upside beyond that. In the action that he had, it was just one game, 27 minutes, 1.15 DraftKings points per minute. Other pieces of Portland, showing value. Jabari Walker's right there. He's picking up both sides, really. On FanDuel, by the way, Simon 6,300, a lot less valuable, 6%. Colin Sexton, 31% winner on FanDuel, 19% on DraftKings. But you have a handful of guys here that are just like single digits on FanDuel, some differentiated plays site to site today. These guys are all showing decent points per dollar value. They didn't really come through the sim strongly on the FanDuel slate. Brandon Miller, Tari Eason, who came up questionably, was downgraded during the day, so we might scrap Tari Eason. Koulibaly, 4,700, small forward only. Out of the group, he's the lowest end points per dollar over there. But all those guys showing reasonable, 20 to 25% value on the DraftKings slate. 4,300 at shooting guard, small forward for Koulibaly. 57 for Brandon Miller. 58 for Colin Sexton. I mentioned Bojan. 3,600 for Landry Shamet, not showing anything for 41 at shooting guard only on FanDuel, but giving you a 16% win rate on DraftKings for 3,600. So there are a lot of, low to low mid, lower middle class type 4,000s and low 5,000s into the threes on DraftKings. Lot to work with on the DraftKings board. I suspect just seeing that we're going to be a little bit more Starsy Scrubsy looking on DK, a little bit more balanced looking on FanDuel once we get into it. But we'll find out. Could be Trav says, love Bojan. He got a real high usage rate on that second unit. Yeah, just a good player, too. I never have issues. I tend to like Bogdan better between the two. Again, not related. But But Bojan is a very good player in his own right. Again, it's just one game so far this season, but 1.07 FanDuel points, 1.11 DraftKings points per minute in that game, and had a 30.2% usage rate. This will obviously, I don't think, be quite so high over the course of time, but he will be significantly used. Looking down the board, you do get a little bit more juice, it looks like, out of some high price plays on FanDuel. So maybe it is Starsy Scrubsy. It just falls into different positions on FanDuel. We'll see. We'll see how it all comes up. But some interesting guy, Freddie Van Vliet with a 30% win rate, essentially. Jaren Jackson at 17.4, where he comes up at 13% across sites. These guys are all still good. Like, there's a lot of maintained value through the teens on the DraftKings slate for these guys. So maybe it's more that they're a couple points better on FanDuel, but they stand out because a lot of these guys are not showing any value. And then when we get down to this part of the board, like Sohan at 22% versus 7% on DraftKings as a mid-range type guy. Couple of double-digit marks down here. Cam Johnson at 23. Jimmy Butler at 32 is massive. That's a huge difference. 3.45% win rate at 9,500, both forward spots on DraftKings. On FanDuel for 86, he's got a massive win rate, 32%. Timmy Hardaway showing a little value. Timmy's playing. We'll get into, I'll run through the ins and the outs. Kyrie is also playing. 38.9% on FanDuel. Just 8,100 for Kyrie Irving on FanDuel. That is way too cheap. 1.18 FanDuel points per minute, 1.21 on DraftKings. He's a $9,400 player on DraftKings at both guard spots. Just 1.12% win rate. Kyrie is massive on FanDuel. Maybe they were just pricing him as if he wasn't going to play. I don't know. Dinwiddie, comparable value, ridiculously higher. We'll go through some of these again as we look at the position by position of it. But damn. There are some big differences site to site today. Something to pay attention to. All right, can you please go lie down? Come on, go lie down. You just ate. You don't need to be sitting here licking the arm of the chair again. So just looking at the board in Vegas real quick. $239.5 on the board between Philly and Washington. We should see a fair amount coming through from that game. We already see Koulibaly up at the top of the board, Landry Shamet right there, Danilo right there as value plays. Some Kyle Kuzma landing a little further down the board there. Corey Kispert. I feel like the lady from, what was that, like Reading Rainbow? I see Corey Kispert. I see Paul George. I see Tyrese Maxey. I see Steven Leibowitz pointing out to hit the like button. Appreciate that, buddy. Tiz is going to wiggle in here and grab a seat. What's going on, Tiz? So some pieces from that Washington-Philly game. The issue there, 10.5 point spread, obviously in Philly's favor. A lot of closer games. There's a 12-point spread between San Antonio and Minnesota in Minnesota's favor. 230-point total there. Some interesting pieces, obviously, from each of those teams, but that maybe not the best overall opportunity. And I feel like Minnesota just kind of smokes a not great San Antonio squad. But you could have Wemby put up a game. He's just going to be facing kind of stout defense on that Minnesota team. 11.5 points between Utah and Dallas. Dallas favored, obviously. And as I mentioned, Kyrie and Timmy Hardaway both playing after being questionable to start the day. 233 points there, but obviously a lot of very usable pieces there. So that one's still kind of interesting, I think. And then 13 points favored Golden State, 226-point total. So we do have 4 big point spreads, but all reasonably healthy totals, all some interesting pieces, because that's the one that's got Portland on the other side with all these crazy value plays. So Portland Golden State makes some sense to keep in mind. It's also the last game of the slate, so getting all that value in the last game is interesting in terms of if something changes, that could go completely haywire. But we've got 2 points on the board between Memphis and Detroit favoring Memphis, 220.5 points, 224.5 between Orlando and Cleveland, 219.5 between Miami and Toronto. The biggie is Brooklyn and Atlanta at 243, 3.5 point spread in Atlanta's favor. We definitely have some pieces from that one to talk about on this board. Bogdan, we already mentioned. Sadiq Bey looks like a very interesting piece on both sites. Clint Capella showing a little bit of value on that board before we just who's on the screen right now. So definitely some interesting pieces there. We saw Dinwiddie on FanDuel as we were scrolling down through that list. So some Brooklyn's got to be in here somewhere with a total like that. 220.5 between Charlotte and Chicago. That one's just kind of eh. Zach LaVine out, LaMelo Ball out. Just kind of missing some parts in that game that would otherwise maybe make it more interesting. OKC favored by 1.5 over Houston, 226 point total. And then the Denver LA game is a 1 point game, 226 point total. So that one's kind of interesting too. A lot of starish caliber pieces in that, and including some of the very best players in the entire sport. So some interesting places to go. Injury wise, make sure nothing broke in the last couple of minutes. Joe Harris is out. We'll take care of that later on. Not a big piece of news. I don't remember how many minutes he's projected for, but it's not a ton. Probables were, and I think still are, Marvin Bagley, Anthony Melton, Caleb Martin, who is available, Alex Caruso, Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Chris Paul, and Andrew Wiggins. Questionables, Tari Eason, who landed questionable in the mid-afternoon, seems, maybe not going to go. Jonathan Isaac, Dean Wade, which would be an interesting little piece to drop back into that Cleveland rotation. Johnny Davis, Jordan Poole, Landry Shamet, Anthony Edwards, which is a biggie, Mark Williams, Torrey Craig, Grant Williams, Anthony Simons. Out, Joe Harris was doubtful. Okay, so I probably didn't even project Joe Harris for any minutes. If they're doubtful, I usually don't put them in. So Joe Harris now officially out. Karis LeVert out. Bam Adebayo, Markelle Fultz, Haywood Highsmith, Zach LaVine, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Markkinen, Kelly Olynyk, Josh Green, Jeremy Grant, DeAndre Ayton, who technically I believe is still doubtful, but we've got him out, and Gary Payton, in addition to guys who have just been out, the Ja Morants and Wendell Carters of the world. Guys who have been out, I don't tend to just keep relisting. It's just the ones where there's interesting news or if it's just the last couple of days or whatever. So we're waiting on a couple pieces, but hopefully, like I was saying yesterday, with 3 days off coming up to today, like hopefully most of these guys can manage to get their bodies out onto the court. Would be nice. Yeah, I think that's a good pickup for the Orioles, Steven. We were talking about it in Discord. Craig Kimbrell. Just good to see them spending money, as our resident Orioles fan, Illegal Form Nation, was saying. Just, no, Steven, you missed the start of the show. I spent like 5 minutes talking about baseball. It's on a day where the Yankees are closing in on Soto. I was definitely already talking baseball, buddy, so you're fine. But I think it's an interesting move just because, they're obviously looking to cash in on their very clear window of opportunity with this great young core of players. More of them to come. Jackson Holiday potentially breaking camp with the big club this year. So yeah, that's a good pickup for them. Solidify that bullpen, and as Illegal Form is pointing out in the Discord, kind of makes sense for them to chase somebody like Dylan Cease, or some other high end pitcher. So we'll see what they do, but AL East is going to be fun next year. Especially if the Jays pick up Ohtani. Forget it. It's going to be a battle. So long, Red Sox. Yes, Matthew Patterson. Jimmy Buckets looked pretty good as we were scrolling down the board there, I think. Where the hell was he? FanDuel, he looks really good. 8,600. There's a couple stars priced in the 8s today. Kyrie and Jimmy Butler, both for 8,100 and 8,600, just as like a foundational 2 first clicks in a lot of lineups. I think that's going to be. We'll see it in the Sims. We're going to see a ton of Kyrie, Dinwiddie, Jimmy Butler lineups. I'm telling you now, without even looking position by position yet, just where these guys are priced and like what their ceiling scores will come through at is in Sims. But yeah, Jimmy 32% win rate on the FanDuel slate. No Bam, so you obviously get upticks for Jimmy. Could potentially give him a little bit of a nudge here. Let's see where I don't want to give him more time, but I might be able to goose the rate a little bit more. Got him at 1-2-1. Been 1-1-3 on the season. I'll swing back and look at. It would be a matter of like a point, but it would just make him look even better on FanDuel. But there's room to get him to like 45 and change probably. On DraftKings, a little bit less, 9,500, just the price difference, but very capable. Definitely a guy that you can spend on as a luxury item today with no BAM there, and just consider him like a star caliber player that you're using all those values to pay up for, those guys that we talk about a lot. That said, 4.65 points per dollar, there probably are, and we'll try and identify some as we go through, but like 10-7, 4.89 points per dollar, 8-9, 5.17, there's different positions, but there's comparable spend spots. So it just might not fall as like the wisest spot to spend that money. But the player, obviously, very, very good. Projects very well. Great opportunity. 1.13 DraftKings points per minute so far this season. Just trying to make that a little bit more visible and leave the stuff that matters on here. Everybody knows the stuff over here is just statistical and true shooting, assist rate, rebounding rate, points per game, rebounds. Anytime anybody wants to see any of this or has a question about it, we can always, it is there, so just feel free to ask. But I just try and keep the fantasy stuff on the screen. So yeah, Jimmy, critical play on FanDuel it looks like, and a guy who you can involve in lineups on DraftKings. Let's jump into some position by position for some news breaks and changes this whole thing. So cross sites again, especially at this guard spot, there's a lot of differences. Like you got guys with minimal win rates showing at least like mid-single digits, low and single digits and sub ones in all these spots compared to like teens. A lot of price-based differences across sites. So Simon's assuming he steps back into 26 minutes, a 6% win rate on the FanDuel slate, but 30% winner on DraftKings because he only cost $5,500 over there. Pretty good opportunity. What was he last year? Let's pull him up. Since the start of last season, this will take a sec. Spent part of last night updating some stuff in the model. The usual, like every chunk of games, I give it a little bit more of this year and take away a little bit more of years past. So let's see. Simon's over the last calendar year, or calendar year plus, 0.88 FanDuel points per minute, 0.94 DraftKings points per minute. Obviously, different configuration of this team. Let's take Dame out of there, for one thing. Just trying to get a rough idea. Yeah, after we take Dame out, 914 minutes with a more comparable version of this team. And 1.08 FanDuel points per minute, 1.14 DraftKings points per minute for Simons. So if you want to say, Malcolm Brogdon is, 60% a Dame? I've got Simons in this projection in his 26 minutes at 0.93. Down from 1.08 to 0.93 to account for Malcolm Brogdon. I think that's about right. I don't think I want to give him any more than that. I'm just taking a quick tour through Simon's here again. Interesting. They goosed his minutes over at that other site. Kind of curious about that. Do we really see him playing? Anybody have a read on that? Anybody see him playing more than like 26 minutes in this game? If he does, he just gets better and better. I mean, there's no on the DraftKings slate, it's massive. Let me get that. I didn't realize the logo was blocking the top of that. Come on. There you go. So we just, whatever. This is win rate. We just get better if he picks up minutes on DraftKings. I don't know that I want to give him more minutes. I was really happy with him where he was. I think I'm going to leave him. That'll be an interesting difference. Potential inflection point for the slate. You'll come up with plenty of them at these numbers on DraftKings. If you give him a little bit more, if you want to goose him to get to more of them, fine. Where you might not get quite enough if he goes out and does play like 32 minutes tonight is on FanDuel. Might have to do something there. We'll see. Let me jot him down. Anyway, going on with the players I actually want to talk about. Not that I don't like Simons. I just hate these situations where it's just completely uncertain and everybody's just guessing at minutes and then we get differentiated numbers. All right, so Simons. We'll take a look at that. Who's the other one? I was saying Jimmy Butler. Mamba, what's your read on Anthony Simons? Assuming that he plays. If he doesn't play at all, we know what to do with him. I had him at 26, and I thought that's where basically everybody was around town for most of the day. But it looks like some places have pushed him up a little bit. I didn't see any chatter about like coming back to full minutes. Mama's usually got some good thoughts on minutes and stuff. Mama's at 26. Yeah, I'm comfy there. I'm going to stay there for now. Keep an eye on it. Like I said, if you're concerned with the amount of Anthony Simons that you're getting to, which on DraftKings, I don't think you're going to have any kind of problem anyway. On FanDuel, if you want a little bit more, you're going to have to probably goose it. I think you could reasonably take it to a 26.5 point projection and be okay. And he would probably come up, double this win rate at most. Probably still not critical. Like if you took him to 30 minutes, you'd be at another 2.7 on top. So it would be at 27 and change. That would be my ceiling. I wouldn't give him any, in terms of projection, I wouldn't give him more than like 27 FanDuel points. I'm not saying that's his ceiling. I'm saying that's my mean projection ceiling. So guys that we're actually here to talk about. Let's see. 9,100 for Donovan Mitchell. 15.9% winner on DraftKings for that price at both guard spots. Pretty interesting. Only 4% on FanDuel. 9,800, a little expensive. Luxury item on FanDuel. Perfectly happy with playing some Donovan Mitchell, but definitely doesn't grade out the same site to site. $3,600 Landry Shamet in that somewhat appealing Washington-Philly game. Just a value price play. 3,600 at both guard spots. Just fits in by the square for cheap. 4,100 on FanDuel. Just no value whatsoever in 19 minutes. Sexton is a reasonably good play on both sites. 19% winner on DraftKings. 31.4% winner on FanDuel. 0.98 points per minute so far this season in 20 minutes a night. A little bit of an uptick in minutes with pieces missing there still. Freddie VanVleet. How many minutes can Fred VanVleet play this season? I've got him at 40 tonight. He's ridiculous. Freddie plays averaging 40.5 his last 3, averaging 39.8 his last 5, averaging 40.2 his last 10, 37.8 for the season. Dude just plays minutes. So Freddie's showing some minutes-based value at worst. 28.9% winner on the FanDuel slate, 14.3% winner on the DraftKings slate. They're dogs, but that was one of the closer games on the board. That was a 1.5 point spread and a 226 point total. They're 112 and a quarter implied total versus 113 and 3/4 for OKC. So I could see that one turning into a little bit of a dogfight. Just a little bit of back and forth. If you want to shoot for OT type games, it could get interesting there. Obviously, we're not trying to gear ourselves around predicting which games are going to overtime. James Harden looking pretty solid. All three of those guys playing very good minutes. 15.2% winner on FanDuel, 13.8% winner for 7,900 on DraftKings. As I said a bunch of times, these guys are just going to keep on landing in similar places to one another, and it's just going to be which one comes through in any given night. So unless we see a guy take a massive price uptick and fall off the map in terms of these sim results, I think any one, any two of the three in any given lineup is perfectly fine, if not advisable in a lot of situations. Getting all three is probably challenging. I think you're getting one of them at or about their mean score, or a little bit below, half a standard deviation below their mean score on most nights, where the other two will be one of them at like a half a standard deviation or, a standard deviation above their mean projection, and then the other one having the opportunity to have the ceiling score. It's just which one. Tyrese Maxey, 13% on both sites. Very good piece of pay-up star caliber talent. 9,200 at point guard on FanDuel, 9,400 at point guard on DraftKings. Oddly showing a little bit less on FanDuel, 13% versus 13.2. I mean, it's completely negligible, but it's just interesting for the 200 less on the FanDuel slate. Usually that salary difference would pop a little bit more. 1.18 FanDuel points per minute on the season, though. Obviously a major opportunity. Accidentally closed that off too far. Derrick Rose at 53, just 6.4% winner on FanDuel, 12.6% at 51 on DraftKings, showing a little bit of value there. Reasonable expectation of, at or about 25 minutes, at or about a point per minute, a little bit less this season, 0.94 on DraftKings, 0.92 on FanDuel. I'm not all that upset. I won't have to play too much Derrick Rose tonight on FanDuel. You DraftKings guys can have Derrick Rose. I remember several years ago when my Knicks brought him to town, and it was like, why are we getting Derrick Rose? He's had some good games, don't get me wrong. The nights that the knees feel good, he can still look like a reasonable facsimile of the old Derrick Rose. But this is the old Derrick Rose. I don't love him, but reasonable enough role there. Reasonable enough fantasy contributor. So for the money, for the points per dollar, as always, we just ignore who it is. Don't pay attention to the name on the jersey. Don't look at the laundry. Don't look at the guy filling the laundry. Just look at the price, the projection, the results, the per minute. It's all that matters. Luka not showing nearly as much value on FanDuel for 12.4 as he is on DraftKings for 11.7. 10% winner on DraftKings. Looks like a very good pay-up opportunity over there. 1.63 points per minute. 1.56 points per minute on FanDuel. 0.97% winner. I will be above that on in terms of my ownership. I will always make sure that I have a little pocket full of Luka shares, pocket full of Jokic and Embiid and these type guys. The guys who can go out and do this, 46 minutes, 86 FanDuel points. Granted, that's a lot of minutes, but the guy, I believe that was an overtime game. The guys who can go out there and give you 70, 80 FanDuel points, 70, 80 DraftKings points, that just becomes unrivaled. You just need it after a certain point, because even if you're stacking up three other guys for the price differential, they still have to make up that 30-point gap, so they might not be able to cover it. So Luka will be in my plans a little bit more than this on FanDuel, but obviously there are other stars that are going to be showing a little bit more value. Kyrie, again, on the same team, same situation, 8,100. That's a massive difference. It's a $4,300 difference between Luka and Kyrie in the same spot. Kyrie's coming up 38.9% winner on FanDuel, but by the same token, just 1.12 because he's 94. He's more correctly priced on DraftKings. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, around like 87, 88. Scotty Barnes, just 3% winner on FanDuel, 8% winner on DraftKings, 8,800 over there, 8,900 on FanDuel. Both forward spots on FanDuel. Still point guard, small forward on DraftKings. Love the flexibility. Makes him a unique piece that you can move around in ways that you can't for other guys. 1.30 DraftKings points per minute on the season, 1.31 FanDuel points per minute. Yeah, I was like, wait, he had a good game. I was on the wrong line. I was looking at Sohan's line. 61.8 FanDuel points in 36.7 minutes the last time out. Capable of monster games, and he's been really, really good this year. He's arguably still a little bit cheap. It still might be his price has gone up, but it still might be a get him while he's cheap Scotty Barnes situation. I could easily see him in the 9s. Assuming he continues what he's doing. There's a game for Toronto. Let's see. I've got him 1.18. So, I mean, technically we're well below that points per minute projection. And that's where some of the history that I mentioned comes in. You know, it's not just what he's done this year that comes into these projections. But you could arguably give him even more. They are in a minor pace down spot. I have them losing like a half a possession over their average, but that's basically inconsequential. Everybody's just like, you should be who you are. Like Siakam is a 1.06 on the season. I've got him at 1.04. Jakob Poeltl is 1.09 for the season. That's exactly where I have him. You could make the argument that Scotty should be projected higher, but I'm comfortable where he is. I don't want to. I think giving him anything more than this would be getting carried away. But he is averaging right around that for the season. Sohan at 56, point guard power forward, unique eligibility on FanDuel. 22.1%. Just the point guard only, 5,900 on the DraftKings slate, 7,200. He was point guard small forward, wasn't he? Did they change that to point guard power forward now? That's even better. I really like getting him on one end or the other. Like point guard and power forward are two spots where I can tend to go one star, one mid-range or low-cost guy. And getting Sohan in both those spots is, I like that. That's good flexibility. Kobe White, not really showing a ton of value despite a 30-point projection, 7,400 point guard only on FanDuel. On DraftKings, 6% winner for 6,900 at the position, 4.58 points per dollar. He's been a 0.85 points per minute player on the season. Did go out and put up 50.8 FanDuel points in 40.2 minutes the other night. Capable of reasonable ceilings around, that's about the ceiling. It's just interesting for the, I guess it's a little bit points per dollar driven, particularly on FanDuel at the higher cost. Not really coming up. SGA, despite a monster projection, not really landing on FanDuel. Another guy that's just a luxury. I'll happily pay up for SGA shares any given slate. Put up 50.1 in 38.5 minutes the other night. At 11.2, that's not going to get you there. But for the season, he's a 1.56 FanDuel point per minute player, 1.53 on DraftKings. Trey looking a little bit better. 10,000 at point guard only. That Brooklyn-Atlanta game was appealing. So just on the idea of the game just driving up his potential numbers, there's a little bit maybe ceiling beyond this for Trae Young. 54.4 and 36.7 minutes the other night. Similarly high projection on DK, 4.79. A little bit more valuable on DraftKings. 10-3 over there. Mike Conley just looking like Mike Conley. More value on FanDuel, 5,700 over here. 11% winner, 4.3% winner on DraftKings. Brogdon holding a little value. 18.9% on FanDuel, just 4.3% on DraftKings. He's 8,500 point guard shooting guard on DraftKings. He's just 78 on FanDuel. Assuming he maintains most of what he's got right now with the return of Simons, I think we're all right. Keontae George, 23.9% winner on FanDuel. Just 3.2% on DraftKings. 6,700 point guard only versus 5,800 point guard shooting guard. It's a pretty big difference there. Kyrie, we've talked about a number of times, but just to absolutely make the point, 38.9% winner on FanDuel. 5.33 points per dollar. 8,100 for Kyrie Irving at both guard spots. It's just too cheap. Spencer Dinwiddie, also very cheap, 6,600. It's 0.94 FanDuel points per minute on the season, 0.98 DraftKings. He can give you this kind of game time and time again, but he does have a ceiling. 35 and a half minutes, just put up 29 FanDuel points the other night. If you ask me if I walked into the room having nothing, not looked at anything on the slate at the end of tonight, and you were like, what do you think Spencer Dinwiddie put up on FanDuel tonight? I would say 28 to 30. That's just right. That is who he is. I've got him projected higher. I think it's reasonable. It's a 36-minute projection. Got him right around his rate, 35 FanDuel points. But I just feel like this is always Spencer Dinwiddie. But he projects out great. He sims out great. 39.6% winner for that price on FanDuel. So critical piece on FanDuel tonight. On DraftKings, not nearly as much. 7,900 over there. Not showing any kind of similar value. A 0.55% winner. A little 3.9% there for Cam Thomas. Carrying a monster projection with 32 minutes. Just keep an eye on the lineup there. That would be the one concern. A little bit of variability right now with Brooklyn trying to figure things out. If he plays like 28, he loses a little bit of value. If he plays around 30 plus, we're talking about, it's a 3.9% winner on FanDuel, 0.24 on DraftKings. So it's nothing to get carried away with. But he's been very good in the minutes that he's played this season. And he's averaging 32 a night in the 10 games that he's played. So I think it's reasonable to expect that he has that kind of appeal. 37.5 the last time out, just 33.9 FanDuel points. But the average is somewhere in this territory. Dennis Schroeder, 8% winner on FanDuel, just 3% on DraftKings. Just another, also ran type guy. Just trying to pick some of those out. Melton at 8.5% on FanDuel, 2.04% on DraftKings. DraftKings looking a little bit more top heavy. Let's see. Double digits at the guard spot. We've got 10 guys. 161% of the win rate. If we do the same thing on FanDuel. Come on. What do I need? A fucking quantum computer to sort a column? Come on. That was ridiculous. All right, it's the same 10. It's not the same 10 guys. It's also 10 guys. But on FanDuel, the 10 guys at the guard spot that we're looking at here account for 243% of the win rate, which is interesting. You are required to play two of them, at each spot. But yeah, kind of interesting. A lot of good names there. Dinwiddie, Kyrie, Colin Sexton, Freddie Van Vliet, Keontae George, Jeremy Sohan, Malcolm Brogdon, Harden, Maxey, Darius Garland, who we didn't really touch on. 8% winner on FanDuel, 14% winner on DraftKings. Why did I skip over Darius Garland? That's not a bad option. 7,500 point guard only, 14% win rate. Half that on FanDuel for 7,500 a point guard. Putting up 0.97 points per minute, 1.01 on DraftKings. 41.9 FanDuel points in 34 minutes the other night. Ceiling beyond that still. We did talk about Mitchell, who's a similar win rate on DraftKings, but less on FanDuel, 15.9% on DraftKings for the 9,100. Just checking injuries. 5:15. We'll get a 5:30 in a little bit. No changes so far. So let's jump to talk about some forwards. Keep this thing moving along. Lots to talk about with 11 games on this slate. Ryan mentions the only reason I think he could push 30 minutes, it was a finger injury, so he hasn't stopped running. Also, they brought Brogdon back full minutes after we thought they wouldn't. Yeah, the finger thing, the fact that if it's not a conditioning issue is definitely interesting, something worth thinking about. Mamba's saying he hasn't gone through a full workout or practice yet, so not comfortable raising it higher than that. And there is the idea of game shape versus running shape versus cardio shape. So I typically don't goose minutes in the first, game, 2 games back. There have been times where obviously we've been wrong. I'm not going to say we get it right every time. But I do feel like tends to be more conservative. It's not like they're playing for anything. It's not like they don't know who Anthony Simons is at this point. So I don't think there's that much need to, really force the issue. I don't know. It is potentially a critical inflection point on the slate. Whoever gets those minutes right has an advantage over the slate tonight. Put it that way. Speaking of advantages over the slate, Bogdan just looking good. 31.2. I don't know why I resorted that. It's got to be. Conditional formatting should not make this that difficult to sort. It's just dumb. Maybe I should just rebuild this whole file. I've talked about that already. So, Bogdan, 1.02 FanDuel points per minute, 1.04 DraftKings points per minute. Just a very good player playing 26 and a half minutes tonight. We've got him getting a little bit more than that. Over the last few games, he's playing right around this much. Yeah, whoops, that's the wrong tab. Last 3 playing 29 minutes a night, 29.3. Got him at 29 and a half. So he looks really solid. 30+% win rates on both sites, 36 on FanDuel, 31 on DraftKings. Definitely going to be a piece. And that's an appealing game, that Brooklyn and Atlanta spot. Jabari Walker, 24 minutes, picking up a little value in Portland. 22% win rate on FanDuel, 27% on the DraftKings slate, 0.93 points per minute, showing a 5.20 points per dollar. Power forward only, 4,400. No flexibility of position. Small forward, 4,300. I think I like him just positioning-wise on the FanDuel slate a little bit better. I think I'd just rather have him at small forward than power forward. You do have a lot of just small forward only options on FanDuel today, though. And a lot of reasonable ones. Although, again, these guys aren't coming through as strongly. Might just be some of the positional flex that we're seeing taking over there. Like if you look at these two are all right. So a little bit of Derek Jones and DeMar DeRozan taking over some of the small forward only win rate, which makes sense. And then just, smattering for these guys. But Koulibaly on DraftKings, 4,300, 26% win rate. It's just a 0.71 DraftKings points per minute player. Reasonable expectation for 27 minutes. It's been at 28.5, 28.3 over the last 3 games. Played 32 the last time out. Put up 25. That's your downside, but he's cheap. So even if you're getting just like that 25, you're not totally shot in the foot. You want a little bit more, obviously. Brandon Miller, another guy, just 7.4% winner on FanDuel, 20% winner on DraftKings at 5,700, both shooting guard and small forward. Just a little limited price and position on FanDuel versus what he looks like across town. 0.8 DraftKings points per minute on the season. 4,400 for Tari Eason, assuming that he plays. And again, I don't love going to guys who got downgraded to questionable during the day. So we probably scrap those 20 minutes and just sprinkle them around the Houston rotation. Maybe give another 4 minutes to Freddie VanVleet, project him for 45. I kid. Sadiq Bey, another piece of that Brooklyn Atlanta game. Just a 3% win rate on FanDuel. 28-point projection in 34 minutes. Pretty reasonable. 0.82 FanDuel points per minute so far this season. 0.83 on DraftKings. At 56, power forward only, he's coming up pretty valuable on DK at 15% win rate. Kawhi, another good luxury item. 8,700, not overpriced. But again, all those guys from the Clippers just kind of look like this. The Harden win rates were a little bit better. Looks like Paul George, a little bit worse. Both of these guys in the 5s versus Harden on FanDuel. Versus Harden was, I think, 11, 12, somewhere around there. So maybe it's a little bit more Harden, but that was also a little price driven. These guys are 87 and 86. He was a little cheaper than that. On DraftKings, they all look pretty playable and pretty similar. 14.2% win rate on DK at 81 for Kawhi, power forward only. And then Paul George, 8,600 shooting guard, small forward, 11.1% win rate. So what I was saying about them before is really, really applicable to the DK slate tonight, where all three of them just look playable, but I don't think you want 3. I think you want a max at 2, and probably preferably 1, and just take your shot. But there's nothing wrong with playing 2 of them on DraftKings because they all look pretty reasonably good. I just think your ceiling is probably a little capped with 3. Des Bane, solid chunk of guys right here, showing value on FanDuel and maintaining it on DraftKings. Jaren Jackson, Derek Jones, DeMar DeRozan, Desmond Bane. Paul George dips on FanDuel, like I was just saying, but then Kyle Kuzma, Draymond Green. It's a good core of players. A lot of solid point and change per minute guys. Jaren Jackson, 17.4% winner on FanDuel, 13.9% winner on the DraftKings slate. That Memphis-Detroit game, 220.5 points, but a 2-point spread. Could see Jaren Jackson having a day there. The Detroit team is just bad. Jones is a little bit just price-driven, 4,900 small forward. That just works. 14.6% winner on FanDuel for 5,000 both forward spots. 13.5% winner on DraftKings. And then all these guys are just very, very fairly priced for the $8,200 Des Bane for 1.19 FanDuel points per minute. Sign me up. 30 minutes, 45.1 FanDuel points the last time out. 28% winner. On DraftKings, a little bit less valuable at 89, but shooting guard, small forward flexibility, 12.7% winner. Nobody, we've got Bogdan at the top of the board at 31. So the range here is not crazy to have a guy at 89 be a comparable, 12.7% win rate. Solid plateau of options here. Kuzma, I just like 5.29 points per dollar, very high projection, 1.22 FanDuel points per minute. He's holding it up. 8,000 on the FanDuel slate, both forward spots. Power forward only on DraftKings. 9.4% winner over there. Significantly more value on the FanDuel slate, but a playable piece on DraftKings at worst. 1.28 points per minute over there. It's been very, very good this season. That's in a game where they're getting like a possession and change. I've got him, it's only 100th of a point per minute below his season-long rate. So basically call it right at his season-long rate. There could be a justification for giving him an additional, tiny uptick. But I'm going to leave him exactly where he is because I'm very comfy with a pretty high projection on him. But he's been holding that up. So I don't dislike it. Draymond, 6,300, power forward and center. The flexibility there is definitely going to give you value on FanDuel. 29% win rate on FanDuel, just 9% on DraftKings. Power forward and center over there, but it matters less. This is interesting positioning for Draymond on the FanDuel slate. Cam Johnson, again, 23% winner on FanDuel, just a 4.5% on DraftKings. 6,000 both forward spots versus 6,500 power forward only. Explains the difference there. 95 for Jimmy, we talked about. 93 for Cat is playable, but not looking great on DraftKings. 2.7% winner. Very good projection. 1.23 DraftKings points per minute. He fits in at both power forward and center, but not looking like a priority by any means. Just a good player at his correct price. 4%. You could squeeze a little bit more value out of him on the FanDuel slate. Lands in winners a little bit more often, but again, just a good player at his correct price. Timmy Hardaway, I don't like this one at all. He's very cheap though. 4,800 even for Tim Hardaway. That's getting to the territory where it's pretty cheap. He is a 0.84 FanDuel point per minute player. So for 48, shooting guard and small forward, he's disappointed me 10,000 times in his career, including twice in real life when he's come through the Knicks. I do not like having to go to Tim Hardaway, but even with it, it's a 23-point projection in 27 minutes. I'm not like over the moon about this. He's just holding some value, points and position-driven value on FanDuel, 23%. You guys are lucky on DK, 5,600. You don't have to consider him at all. He can land in some lineups, share here, share there is fine, but he's not a frequent winner. Slightly more frequent visitor to the top 1%, 3.2. Paulo, a little bit of value on FanDuel that he's not showing on DraftKings. 39-point projection, 8,300 power forward only, just 0.62% winner on DK. But it's 78 both forward spots. There's significant value there on FanDuel, 13.3% winner. John Collins, similar story, 6,200 power forward and center only versus 7,200 on DraftKings power forward and center. FanDuel behind the curve on Collins' price. 17% winner. That's another critical piece. So Draymond, John Collins, both in that low sixes, both some interesting value on FanDuel. Nobody down this way on DraftKings, obviously, because we're sorted by DraftKings win rate, but we're just looking for some of these site-to-site outliers. Tobias Harris, 6,500. A little bit more value on FanDuel. He'll be a piece. Nobody else. We could spend more time in here, picking off like oddballs like Matty Thybul. 4,100 not showing all that much on FanDuel, 4% win rate, but at 3,900 on DK, price-driven, price and position, small forward, 14% win rate. Not a player you want to go out of your way for all that frequently. 0.69 FanDuel points, 0.65 DraftKings points, but holding up a little bit just based on price and position. But there are a lot of those type of options today, so you don't necessarily need to go down that road with Matty Thybul too often. Like when you do have a lot of price and rate similar price, position and rate type guys, and sim return type guys, sometimes it does just pay to take guys and pay a little bit more for a significantly higher performer. Right, like if Tari Eason was going at 44 versus 39, if you can find that additional $500, you can pay up to a current season 1.04 points per minute versus a 0.65 guy in that role. For 4,300, you could do that. It's 0.71 up from 0.65 by going up to Bilal Coulibaly. 4,400, different positioning, but 0.93. I think you get the point. If you can, in most cases, pay for a little bit higher of a rate for two guys who essentially math out as similar plays, it would tend to be that the guys with the better rates will be a little bit higher value anyway and probably more popular. But it does pay to consider that and to do that from time to time. With that said, with Thybul showing this kind of a win rate, let's say in ownership projections that you're looking at, he's at 6% ownership with a 14% win rate. And the comparable guys up here who cost a little bit more are at win rates that kind of just mirror, at ownership rather, that kind of just mirror these win rates. Then by all means, even with the lower points per minute, Matty Thybul becomes the better option. Right? That win rate versus ownership is critical when you're considering those value guys. We talked about Dez. We talked about Paul George. DeRozan just picks up, a little bit of additional value on the absence of Zach LaVine. 13.5% winner on FanDuel, 13.4% on DraftKings. 40 minutes the other night, 43 FanDuel points. That's right about where you're going to be with DeRozan most nights. He's just around a point per minute player. But on the right night where that mid-range jumper falls a few additional times, you can see a little bit of ceiling out of DeRozan. Anybody else? Corey Kispert, not really showing value on FanDuel. A little bit more on DraftKings. 4,100, both forward spots, 8%. Another price and position-driven guy. Gordon Hayward, little 8% guy on both sites. 6,400 on DK, 62 on FanDuel. Both forward spots on DraftKings, shooting guard, small forward on FanDuel. It's 5:30, so we'll keep an eye out for any news. Jabari Smith, more valuable on FanDuel than DraftKings. 5% winner on DraftKings, 13% winner on FanDuel. Power forward only 6,400, but 5.15 points per dollar shouldn't be ignored. 64 power forward only, 5.16. He's a 0.94 per minute player, 0.93 on FanDuel. Last time out, 29.8 minutes, 37.3 FanDuel points. Take that. Oh, look at the Bridges boys landing next to each other. Matching, look at that. Matching 4.3% win rates for the Bridges. Bridges is. That's interesting. Neither one a critical play. McHale showing the most value on FanDuel, 42 point projection, 11.6% winner. Both 4.3%, exactly 4.36 too. Not just like 4.3. We're down to the 100th. Miles Bridges, 5% winner on FanDuel. Both very playable. Both have legit upside. Miles gave us 33 in 35 minutes in his most recent performance. He's been a 1 point per minute player on FanDuel so far in his 8 games. McHale gave us a monster the last time out, 35.4 minutes, 61.5 FanDuel points. Take that game any day. That's just hilarious that they came up with the exact same win rate. And no, it's not a lookup issue. Nikhil Alexander-Walker, if you're looking for some uncomfortable value, quote-unquote value at 5,100. I'm actually surprised he's coming up even that much. No value at 5,800 on DraftKings. Let's jump to center. 5:30. Excuse me. Reload our pals over here at Underdog. At Underdog_NBA, by the way. If you're not following them for up-to-the-minute NBA news, those guys absolutely rock. We do have a few pieces. Jonathan Isaac ruled out. Marvin Bagley available to play. Jordan Poole, a game-time decision, could be an interesting piece in that Washington game. That obviously would open up some stuff if he doesn't go. Landry Shamet ruled out. So that's interesting. Let me think that through real quick. Shamet out. Frees up already. I hit him at 19. If we had a situation with no Shamet and no Poole, that's 49 minutes that I'm going to have to reassign across this already semi-valuable Washington team. That's going to get interesting. Look at this real quick before we jump to center. Bear with me. What do we even have in terms of... I guess we would see probably a couple more minutes. It's probably just a couple more minutes for a handful of these guys. A chunk of minutes going to Johnny Davis. Delon Wright's already out. I think what we really want to do is just hope that Jordan Poole plays so that I don't have to sweat this. We had this situation recently? No, we have not. So let's see. Davis saw a big uptick the last time Poole was out. We're already giving him some, and he'll get more with Poole if Poole and Shaman are both out. And he's a forward. Is Butler with the team? He played 2 games ago. Guess that's where the scraps of minutes go, is probably Jared Butler, assuming he's with the team. I'll have to check that. Like I said, he played 2 games ago. Played 5 minutes. 2 minutes the game before that. But he played 16 4 games back when Poole was out. So presumably, assuming that he's with the team, he's on a 2-way. So assuming he's with the team. Yeah, Ricky, I'm trying to see where those minutes would land. But yeah, Johnny Davis would definitely pick some up. I don't know exactly what it would be at this point. In that game where Poole was out, but Shamet was in. Shamet played 17. Tyus played 24. Just looking at anybody who's a guard. Davis played 16. And then Jared Butler played 16. Mike Muscala had 18 minutes in that game because Danilo was out. But I could see it being a situation where it's just like, they just squeeze the rotation a little bit too. Where like Davis would pick up a few minutes. We don't go crazy with, throwing minutes to Jared Butler if he's with the team. And we just see, Danilo go from 17 to 22. Kispert go from 21 to 24, 26. Probably Tyus, who I've got at 27, I would probably give a nudge just on some guard minutes. And then you just see like, some clunky rotations from these guys. I could see something like that. I don't think that's accurate. Hang on. Double check. Johnny Davis is questionable. If he's out, then I have no idea. Did he come up as out in the last couple of minutes? As of the last injury, as of the 5:30, he's questionable, not out. I don't see any reporting that Johnny Davis is out. Him being questionable, though, is critical. So I appreciate the note there. Something to keep an eye on. That'll be a fun one. I had him listed as questionable on the site. I was up to speed on that. Just not mentally. It's too much to actually remember. I lose context for some of these things sometimes, but I did have Ryan, if you have a source on him being out, let us know. But as of the injury report from 8 minutes ago, still questionable. Okay, no worries. No worries at all, but I'd rather have you mention it and be wrong than not mention it, unlike some other places. Because on the occasions where you're right, that's a critical piece of news, and I'd rather know than not. So Duop Reith up at the top of the board here, obviously looking like a monster. We talked about him at the top of the show, but just to reiterate, picking up 24 minutes in the absence or the expected absence of DeAndre Ayton, who is still technically just doubtful. So this goes away completely if Ayton plays, or for the most part. But 51.3% winner on DraftKings for 3,200. That's a beast. 17% winner for 4,000 on FanDuel. Still, even in the single center site, still pretty critical looking. Gallo would pick up a little bit of value, assuming we took him to a few additional minutes, which I probably will just with the absence of Shamet. So he'll probably pick up a couple additional minutes just on the idea of some warm bodies needed to play minutes. Not that they're a spot-for-spot comparison by any means. But for 3,800, he was already showing a little bit of center value on DraftKings. Power forward and center over there at 38, 15% winner. It's pretty stark on DK after that top option, though. Right? 51% of it going there. And then 3 double-digit guys accounting for another 43% of the win rates. One of those is Joel Embiid. The other one's Jaren Jackson. And then the third one is Danilo Gallinari. So those 3 guys are all looking the same, and a major piece of value here. I probably just play this guy and these 2 guys, and then you take some shots with Gallo, obviously, across the tournament, and he'll get a little bit better looking. He would definitely take an uptick if all 3 of those guys are out, but because they're just going to be down to like 9 guys. So keep an eye on him. If he picks up an additional few minutes, his number here is going to skyrocket. Not that that's the most comfortable play in the world, but a 0.97 points per minute player on the season on DraftKings, 0.94 on FanDuel. Just playing 16 minutes a night, 17 games so far this season. Obviously, you just kind of would rather play Joel Embiid, Jaren Jackson, even Clint Capella, Draymond Green, Jalen Duren going down the board here. All of those guys are better, more comfy players. They're all better per minute guys. 1.26 per minute average across those 5 players. Obviously, that's driven up by Joel Embiid. The other guys, it's 1.14. So he's the lowest per minute guy out of the entire top end here, but potentially another big chunk of value there. Jalen Duren, 1.13 DraftKings points per minute, giving you about an 8% win rate for 66. Nice piece of reasonable expectation value of 30 and change points, the upside to 40 plus 50. Draymond's, again, 29% winner on FanDuel, looks spectacular. 9% winner on DraftKings, definitely a piece over there. Power forward and center, 6,800. 6,300, though, just driving a lot of Draymond value. It's the third highest points per dollar value at the position on FanDuel? 5.57 for Orlando Robinson at 4,500. Just a 12% win rate for O-Rob. Draymond projected significantly higher in the raw sense. And then top of the board, Reith at 5.44. But some other good ones, 5.09 for Jalen Duren. Embiid being at 5.19 points per dollar. You can just lock and load that if you wanted to in a lot of situations. Just a 4.93% win rate, so it's not the right strategy. But just getting Joel Embiid at that kind of a points per dollar is pretty solid when he's costs 12.3. It just doesn't work out necessarily well because of the single center positioning and how limiting he would be versus lineups that use a Duop Reith share there and then just get similarly projected stars, get to a Luka or whoever in other positions. Gafford is just kind of looking like who he is, a little bit better on DraftKings. 7.5% winner on DraftKings for 5,500. A solid 1.06 DraftKings points per minute, 1.13 FanDuel points per minute too. Has had a few games where he's really shined this year. 27.3 minutes last time out, put up 43.7 FanDuel points. Just a 2% win rate on FanDuel. I don't think we're light on the projection or anything. It's I think it makes sense to keep him within reason. We've got him a little bit above a point per minute. Probably not quite at the 1.13, just doing the quick math. Maybe he is. But looks like a very good option on DraftKings. It's 7.5% winner if you're not spending at center, or if you're just using him in the util spot where I suspect we'll see him a little bit more. FanDuel, not as much, but playable, but not as much. More of a dart over there. Claxton, similar. 4.9% winner, 7.2% on DraftKings. A lot of playable guys going down the board here. A lot of between the 9.68% win rate and let's call the line at Jokic at a 2.3% win rate. There's not that much daylight between these guys in terms of how frequently they land in the top. And obviously you're buying ceiling in these luxury item type guys. So you don't care as much about a 2.3% win rate for Joker as you might for a 7.5 for Gafford or a 7.2 for Claxton with more limited ceilings. Sometimes Jokic is just going to go out and have this 81-point game and win you the slate. Jakob Poeltl, 28 minutes, 0.38% on FanDuel, 2.24% on DraftKings. Playable on DK, but not a priority. Jared Allen, definitely more valuable on the FanDuel slate, 11.7%, both center and forward. Gives him a lot of flexible value there. A lot more just, low single digits. Continue down through a few more guys here on DraftKings. All these guys are reasonably playable in a few lineups, but none of them are priorities. Poeltl, Jared Allen, Yurt7, Derek Lively. Showing a little bit on FanDuel as well, but again, it's the same on FanDuel where they're just a couple of shares here, a couple of shares there, especially for the center-only types, like the Yurt7s, the Derek Lively's of the world. You don't want to get too carried away chasing these low single-digit win rates when you've got other center-only options and just one bite at the apple with better choices up there. 17% winner here, John Collins. We talked about him at the forward spot, but again, just a potentially critical piece of value on FanDuel. Nobody else really standing out. Some highly projected, talented players down here. Vooch at 84. 8,000 on FanDuel has a little bit more value, 1.8%. Chet Holmgren, 37.4 point projection, but just a 0.62 winner on FanDuel, 36.6. Just a 0.07 winner on DraftKings for 7,900 at the center spot. 1.26 per minute player, though. 41.7 FanDuel points in 30 minutes the other night. Mark Williams, he's been a guy who stood out on FanDuel in recent slates, but not tonight. Wemby, 2% winner on FanDuel, half that on DraftKings for 9,000, power forward and center. Same power forward center eligibility for same price on FanDuel. A little bit more value on the FanDuel slate. Another guy who could go out and just completely take the top off the slate, though. 1.44 FanDuel points per minute, 1.41 DraftKings points per minute in his dominant rookie year so far. Yeah, he's had a couple clunkers or, below expectation games for the high prices that we're already paying for him. But he's already put up a few monsters, and if anybody's going to go out there and block 10 shots, it could be Wemby. What I don't like is the defenders he's going to have to go up against in this game. Siakam, just showing regular Pascal Siakam numbers. Nothing really to go crazy for, but a little bit more value on FanDuel. 7,900 power forward only on FanDuel. So it's an interesting one. 546. Ricky says do-up seems like terrible chalk today on FanDuel. Yeah, I mean, the win rate on FanDuel, it's notable. He is not the best option at center on FanDuel today. He is the best option at center right now as things stand on DraftKings, just in a price-driven sense, that 51% win rate. But you can see it right there, 17% winner on the FanDuel slate. What was his projected FanDuel? I didn't notice him until I looked at the DK ownership and the DK results. So I don't know that he's over-owned on FanDuel. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's a couple points higher than what that win rate looks like. So I would go along with saying that he's not a great option, given that he is popular and more popular than this win rate on FanDuel. And we've got three better players at better values, including a guy in Draymond Green coming up basically double. That said, he is the highest rated center only. So you could get conceivably these three guys at power forward and put him at center. Or two of these three guys, obviously. But if I had my druthers, I think I'm just taking three of these guys. Power forwards, two power forwards and a center spot. More often, I think, on FanDuel than I'm taking Duop Reith, unless his ownership comes down. On the DraftKings slate, he's just good chalk. You just book him for $3,200 on DraftKings. Unless something changes with the minutes. If you see 8 in play, obviously that comes off the board. It will be abundantly clear if Duop Reith loses his value tonight. But yeah, you could even arguably, you could throw darts at Orlando Robinson. Jared Allen's obviously just a very good player. You don't get Danilo at center on the FanDuel slate, so you don't have to worry about that. You could easily just go to, say, I'm going to pay up and go to Embiid. But yes, I think the most issue I took with that was calling him chalk. He's like 20-ish% projected ownership on FanDuel. So usually I consider chalk a little bit higher than that, but that's just quibbling over ridiculous nomenclature, so who cares? But yeah, looks like he's a little bit over-owned, let's put it that way, on FanDuel. Burning center on 20 FanDuel fantasy points when there's legit 80-point ceiling available, and Embiid and Jokic is oof. So, Ricky, it all depends on just how it stacks up, right? That 20 points for 4,000 definitely gives you the opportunity to buy something. So 20 points for 4,000 versus 80 points for 12,400. Those are not as far off as just those raw values seem like, because you are making back a lot of those points at other positions. So none of this exists in a vacuum. There's no individual like that, and you shouldn't make the comparison that way, honestly. Outside of like what the actual, results in a sim or something like that looks like. Just looking at the raw projection in the spot is kind of a flawed way to go about it, because none of it exists without reference to everything else at the position, at the price point, and at the price point at other positions, right? So it's all one puzzle. There's no individual this guy versus that guy, even with those stars versus a scrub value play there. It's all about, as Mamba says, it's all about lineup construction. I was going to bring it back to my clunky suitcase analogy that some of you have heard and some of you haven't, and I don't want to chew up too much time on it. But it's literally what we're doing here is math. This is something called the knapsack problem. And you have a certain number of oddly shaped objects, right? The easiest way to think about it is if you're packing a suitcase, you can fit 9 items into that suitcase. You've got everything in your house. Only some of it is going to have value to you on your trip. So you're not going to pack, the grate from inside your oven because it's really big, doesn't fit in your suitcase well, and you're not going to need it on your vacation. You are going to pack your travel size toothbrush, which is this big, takes up no room in comparison to anything else, is going to be something that you absolutely need every single day in order for you to not offend people with things on your teeth throughout your vacation. So that goes in the suitcase every time. That's Do Up Reef on DraftKings today. Not as much on FanDuel, but that's Do Up Reef on DraftKings today. Using the travel size toothbrush and throwing that into your box as one of your 9 pieces now affords you more relative room in that box versus if you just put your pair of shoes, your tennis racket, and so on and so forth. It opens up more space for all the other 8 spots, the other 8 pieces. So now maybe I can fit my tennis racket in there. Now I've got something to do. I've got my luxury item, my tennis racket for my fun trip. That's your, to keep it off the position and continue using Do Up Reef in the center spot as the toothbrush. That's your Luka Doncic, right? Luka's your tennis racket, your flippers, your snorkel, all the fun stuff for vacation, the stuff that really pays off if you've got it with you. And then you've got the 5s and 4s and 6s, the guys who are the role players, the guys who are just good players at the right price. Those guys are your underwear, your shirts, your shoes, the shit that you need that just fills out the lineup, fills up, packs up your suitcase, right? So you've got your value guys, but all of it all goes into, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't pack that suitcase without doing that same calculus. You just don't think about it as a math problem, right? But every time you go on vacation, you're solving this exact same problem when you decide what to put in your suitcase. That's all this is. Chen would go on so many more vacations if I could bring 150 suitcases. Yeah, with baggage fees what they are, you get raped. Yeah, there you go. Mama's got it. I can play Luka instead of Embiid with Do Up and now move up 18 spots in the tourney based on his examples that he's given. So Mama's given some good info there in the chat. But Ricky, I hope I hope that's informative to the points that you're bringing up. You're not wrong, obviously, that there is significantly more ceiling on any one of those individual players. Any of us would much rather be playing Embiid or Jokic in that spot. But none of it, my overall point, the thing to take away is none of it exists in a vacuum. None of it exists without all the rest of it. So just think of it as packing that suitcase. So let's jump over and take a look at some of the Ace Mind sims here real quick. Chan is in chat. Chan was here yesterday. He's one of the founders of Ace Mind. One of the programmers, the designers, the founders, the builders, the customer support people. Got to do a lot of things when you start something like this up, but the site's been great. Really liking it. You can do sims. We've been doing that for NBA. We've been doing that for NFL. We tend to look at those are by the way, the percentages that we've been looking at all through the show. Those are all driven by these Ace Mind sims that we're going to look at right now. So firing up DraftKings first. I ran DraftKings twice because I accidentally uploaded it with FanDuel projections the first time. What do you think of Lively if Williams is out? Where do I have Lively right now? I would expect an uptick, but I forget what I've got him projected currently for minutes. I've got him at 27, so put him, give him 5 additional minutes and a little bit of a rate uptick probably. I had him at right around his season number, 0.99 on FanDuel versus 1.0 for the season. It's a game where they're picking up like 2 possessions. So he's right now 26.8 on FanDuel, 24.3 on DraftKings. Conceivably give him... Oh, that's too much. I mean, based on what I just said, you could easily argue your way into giving him like an additional 5 points and take him to like 31, 29 and a half. I don't know that I'd give him that much in that situation. But I think there would definitely be a noteworthy uptick in that situation. A little bit on the screen here. All right, so DraftKings lineups. Again, these are acemine.io. Highly recommend those guys. And we'll take a look at the lineups. These are the top 150 lineups that came through the sim, for which we were just looking at the various individual player percentages. Landry Shamet is now out, so we can ignore him in there. Some interesting lineups here. A lot of do-up Reith. Obviously landing in either the center spot or the util spot in most of these lineups. Do-up Reith is at 82% across these top 150 lineups by ROI. The other highly owned players, Jabari Walker, Bilal Coulibaly, Kawhi Leonard. Embiid sneaking into 28% there, though. That's pretty solid, right? That shows that Embiid can be played as I need my 80 points. You can play him alongside Do-Up Reith on DraftKings. That's your benefit, and that's where they cross up on FanDuel. You can only have one of them. Bogdan, who we were expecting, showing a decent number of returns here. A little bit of a negative ROI. His projected ownership is 22. He came up as a 34% owned by the field in this sim, though. So the field in the sim got out ahead of where we would want him to be. Donovan Mitchell, Bojan, Luka, all landing in a fair chunk of these lineups, all in the 20s. Luka in 23% of them. Pretty starsy scrubsy here. Shamet's going to change things. Obviously, we'll lose 20% there with him coming out. Probably pushes even more to Do-Up Reith in terms of value play, honestly. Not that it's the same position, but just in terms of that's where we're going to secure our $3,300 spot. So definitely we're pretty spendy at the point guard spot, it looks like. Melton, Luka, Trey, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Scotty Barnes, all of whom we talked about. Outside of those Landry Shamet shares, which will go away. Freddie Van Vliet. That holds up fairly well in shooting guard. Bojan, Mitchell, Terry Rozier, some Simons creeping through, some Coulibaly. A lot of Donovan Mitchell popping onto the top end lineups here. Small forward definitely looks like a value spot outside of your Bogdan shares here. That's where we're getting some Thibault, we're getting some Tari Eason, some Coulibaly, some Grant Williams, a little bit of Jimmy down here. Jimmy was, if you remember, showing a lot more value on FanDuel. Power forward, we're back to spending. We've got Kawhi, we've got Kuz. There's some value plays here in like Danilo is a value guy. Tari Eason's a value guy. Jabari is like a mid-range. Derek Jones like a mid-range. But it looks like spend, mid-spend, savings, spend, savings. For the most part. A little bit of Zubac creeping in, some Embiid. But where I say savings is we're mostly getting other center plays in this util spot if we don't use them here. So either way, center util, kind of a savings spot for the most part, just depending on how you build it. Clint Capella here, Do-Up Reith there. This one's got Joel Embiid and Clint Capella in it, and Kawhi Leonard. That's kind of an interesting lineup. Case and Wallace, I guess, is the odd duck in there. Garland, Bojan, Thibault for value, Jabari Walker for value, Joel Embiid, Case and Wallace for value, Kawhi, and Clint Capella. That is an oddball lineup if you want to throw something in there. I don't dislike that. Looks like the individual forward spot mostly trending toward value. A lot of Thibault coming up there, some Jabari Walkers, a little Nick Batum, some Hayward, some Bogdan. Just the one spend in these top, call it 20, whatever. Just the one spend in that position on Kawhi. Probably more of it down board as we go. Yeah, another Kawhi there, Draymond. Here's some Harden mixing in. Jimmy Butler. Very Starsy Scrubsy on DK, though. A lot of Bogdanoviches, both of them. Whew, 6 o'clock. We can get out of here. Fair point, Mama. That's not a bad thought. If you play Embiid, having a Washington player on the other side, which I think you get a fair amount, having a Washington player on the other side, not a bad idea. Embiid probably going to step out of the fourth quarter if they're blowing it out. And that is a game where it's a 10.5 point spread the last time I updated. Let me jump over to FanDuel here real quick, and then I got to punch out. I got to get some lineups built, get the site updated, and all of that fun stuff. Lost track of time. FanDuel lineups. A little more balanced looking, as usual. Top lineup, Kyrie, Freddie VanVleet, Spencer Dinwiddie, Colin Sexton, Gordon Hayward, Jabari Walker, Wemby, Kawhi, and Reith. Look at that. Embiid creeping into the second lineup there. A lot of value plays at the center spot. Wow. It's definitely, there are spends, and I suspect there will be more spendy as we go down. But some of those highest performing lineups, to that point, the 4,000 in Duop Reith bought you all the rest of those guys in that lineup. Right? Jabari Walker is also a value play, but look how good that lineup is in terms of just name brand. Kyrie, Freddie VanVleet, Dinwiddie, Sexton, Gordon Hayward for whatever he's worth. Wemby. I don't love the Wemby play. I don't love the Wemby spot today. But obviously in this lineup, he performed quite well. Just interesting what you can get to. But then obviously a great example of an Embiid lineup is immediately below it. You get Dinwiddie still. You exchange Curry for Kyrie, VanVleet. You could do that either way. Bogdan, Sexton stays in the lineup consistently. Jabari Walker in the lineup consistently. Derek Jones, Gordon Hayward kind of a wash. DeAndre Hunter down from Wemby. Cam Johnson down from Kawhi Leonard. But you go up to Joel Embiid at the center spot. Overall, it's FanDuel, so you're kind of spending at a lot of these positions. Point guard, Kyrie, again, just the Kyrie Irving value today on FanDuel is noteworthy where he's priced. Freddie VanVleet, also similar. Mike Conley landing in a fair amount of these. We did mention his name at one point. But fairly, spendy to mid-range at the point guard spot on FanDuel in both. Pretty spendy looking at shooting guard. Spendy, mid-range spend, right? Like I said at the top of the show, I thought it was going to be pretty balanced looking on FanDuel. And it is. You just get good names for the money at this point on FanDuel. Like Mikal Bridges, Colin Sexton. I love that. Jabari in the forward spots. Jabari Walker, Jabari Smith. But you get Jimmy over there. Not as littered with Jimmy Butler as I would have expected. He's here. He's in some of these. He's not on here, but he's not in every single lineup like I was kind of thinking. The other one I'm surprised not to see here is Draymond. What the hell happened to Draymond? Wasn't he looking really good? There he is. There he is. There he is. There he is. All right, so you just got to go down a few to get to Draymond. So Draymond's probably chewing up much of the top 150, but not actually landing in the very, very top overall lineups here. It's kind of interesting. Could completely change in a different sim, but that's kind of interesting. He ended up in 30% of those top 150. A little bit less than I would have, just eyeballing it, would have thought. Kuzma, the most highly owned power forward option. So a little bit more spread there. He's the second most. So that does jibe with what we were seeing. It's just a little lower than I thought. Sohan showing that value. Timmy Hardaway, the uncomfortable returns. He is a negative ROI play. The field getting to him a fairly high-end clip there. Reasonable justification for an undercut on Timmy Hardaway. I might just be trying to find it, but it is there. 26% is where Reith landed. Positive ROI, 17% win rate. The field only got to him at 10% in this sim. That's a versus 19% projected ownership, so field might have come up a little light in that sim, but still looks like a very good option. Bane, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias. Here's Harden at 15%, negative ROI. Came up a little more highly owned by the field in the sim than he's projected for. Interesting stuff. Chan's getting a ton of Jabari popping. Yeah, Mama says bring your own projections right now. until they can grow and can partner with a data provider. There is a free data provider right here that you guys can feel free to grab my projections, dump them into AceMine, and you'll be off and running. And I'll see you at the top of the standings. We'll be using pretty similar looking lineups. But yeah, these guys are great and works very nicely with our projections. Tyus Jones get extra minutes because ShamWow is out. Yeah, probably. Tyus is one of the guys I'm about to jump into doing that, so I expect him to pick up a couple additional minutes. Keep an eye on the site, Tiz. I'll have it updated in 10-15 minutes. I'll put something up before the 6:30 update, and then I'll re-update after that drops. But I got to punch out, guys. I got to get some lineups built. Got to see what's going on, what changes to make. So with that, thank you very, very much. You guys absolutely rock. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Hit the subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Follow the @rotoscouts Twitter handle, etc., etc., etc. Jump into the Discord. Discord's always fun. Good luck tonight. Somebody go win something. I'll see you guys tomorrow for some basketball and some showdown football. Adios.